Hey everyone, what a topic to talk about. So the topic is, how do you feel about influencers being given designer bags? And specifically, so that you know the level that we're talking about, I'm talking about bags from the likes of Dior, Louis Vuitton, Bottega. Do Bottega give away bags? Possibly. And we're going to talk about why those brands might be doing that, because you'd think, why did Dior need to give anything away? You know, on a lesser brand you can understand it, but on somewhere like Dior, why? So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm also going to go through all of your feedback, and I've categorized you guys into yes, I have a problem with it, and why. Neutral, I don't really care, it is what it is. And no, I don't have a problem. And your answers have been really good. So let's start by kind of talking about the base thing here. I'm going to talk about the types of marketing and where this gifting thing has come from, so that you all know I'm not just talking a whole load of guff. I have always worked in marketing. I've always worked for marketing agencies. I quit marketing agencies and now run a really small at-home agency with my husband. So the work that I've always done and the work that I do now is all in this area. So in advertising, you have got what's called traditional. So traditional advertising might be TV, it might be press, which could be a magazine advert in Vogue or something, through to an advert in a newspaper, either local or tabloid or broadsheet. You then also have digital. Digital's the area that I've always specialised in, and prior to probably 10 years ago, digital was always banner advertising, so display, which is what it's called. So it might be when you log into your Outlook and you've got the banner that goes up on the side, that's a digital display ad. But digital can also be email marketing, which is also known as ECRM. It's kind of an umbrella term for anything electronic which finds its way to a consumer. Over the years, as social has grown and developed, brands cottoned on to how commercial it can be. Compared to a celebrity, certainly up until 5 years ago, through research that was done, it became obvious and apparent that audiences trusted a blogger more than they trusted a celebrity. And a really good example of this is, I don't know how many of you are in the UK that might know about this, but there's a lady over here called Davina McCall, and she used to be, back in the day, she used to be a presenter for Big Brother. She started doing TV commercials, selling, I think it was Garnier hair dye, and she was in the advert proposing to be dyeing her hair at home. Now there's no way Davina McCall has got her head over the bath trying to wash dye out. There's simply no way. She's definitely going to a hairdresser. And so I think that's a really good example of where I'm more likely, even now, as social media has moved on, I'm more likely to believe a blogger than I am a celebrity. Just before I talk more about why brands might use bloggers, not bloggers, influencers, because I personally think there's a difference between the two a little bit. But when a brand comes to an agency, normally they have a brief. So you either, as an agency, if your agency only does creative, then you'll only be asked to do the creative, and you might partner with whoever the client's media buyer is. I've always worked for agencies that do the media buying and the creative. So normally you'd have a client that comes to you and they'll say, right, we've got this new product out, and here's the type of person we need to reach with it. That client has got to pay for creative, which might be a photo shoot, it might require some models. Within that creative remit, on top of the photography, you've also got any design that needs to go alongside with it, any licensing, if you're going to shoot on location, very often you have to go and get permission, and sometimes there might be a fee to pay. Depending on the size of the campaign, the budget spent on creative alone, coming up with an idea that will appeal to the target audience, and then coming up with all of the collateral that goes with it, the photography or whatever. To do that can cost upwards of £20,000 with the clients that I'm used to working with. And normally that creative cost will go to 100,000, if not more, if it's a global campaign. Media So that media, all that is I've got my banner or my creative, now I want people to see it. And media is probably one of the most expensive things, depending on how many eyeballs you want on your advert and the caliber of that person. So if you take TV, for example, one of the most expensive TV slots in the UK at least is ITV when the X Factor is on. And you're looking at upwards, the budgets I'm used to are upwards of 100 grand. And so you can already see there, you're paying for creative, you're paying for media space. When you have an influencer, they've got the creative because they come up with it. They've also got the media space, they've got the audience, and that audience is more engaged than a cold audience that is going to see your TV advert in the slot when X Factor is on. That audience is more engaged than someone reading Vogue who's going to flick through the adverts. The cost associated with using influencers is so much less than going to an agency and going through the old traditional routes, particularly if you give an influencer a product and you don't pay them. If you take, for example, I'm going to demo this. If you take, for example, a Dior bag, this is £3,300. If you were to give this to an influencer who's got, I don't know, an audience of 1 million plus globally, already for £3,300, and they're going to come up with the creative work, go and do all the photography for it, make the video, you are laughing, because not only that, this bag didn't cost the brand £3,300, won't even cost them, it wouldn't even cost them a fraction of that. So that's a bit of the background, and I hope that wasn't boring. So I'm gonna begin with those of you who feel like, yes, it's acceptable. The main themes that have come from all of you, but particularly those of you who don't have a problem with it, the main themes have been, it's fine as long as there is transparency, as long as the influencer in question admits and discloses the fact that the item they're showing has been given to them. So one of your first comments, this is from Amal, you have said, transparency and honesty are the key issues as an influencer, to be honest and transparent of what you actually consider to be a good brand, good quality and good service. Personally, it's not my business what brands give you or what they don't, but at the same time I know an advertisement and marketing has changed when you say this has been gifted. As a marketeer, I don't mind the gifting thing because it's cheap and it's effective, and not only that, but you give something to someone and there is a chance that they're going to include it in more videos or more pictures, because you give someone something and they might be like, actually I really like that, and then you end up getting an extended reach that is organic by that point, even though the bag technically was gifted to them. But as a consumer and as a blogger, I don't like that items are given out, because as a customer, I'll kind of talk about this more at the end, but as a customer, it makes me feel that the product has been cheapened. But at the same time, it kind of feels a little bit insulting, kind of. It kind of does, because it's like, here's a nice product, you go and buy it. Definitely I know what you mean when it comes to being transparent. The other comment which I thought was actually very good is from Mitchell. Hello Mitchell. You have said that you feel like you'd be much more likely to buy something if the influencer was transparent about their relationship with the designer. So a bit like Amal's comment there. But you also say that something feels sort of seedy about influencers being bribed with free stuff because they aren't traditional celebrities. We connect more with them and don't necessarily expect them to be receiving handouts. Part of what I've always loved about your videos is the honesty and what is and isn't sponsored. You are very kind, thank you. There is also something there which you said, very interesting, Mitchell, which is that you believe, you feel more connected with influencers than you do celebrities. And that is exactly why brands do it. They know that if you see your favorite influencer with a product, you're more likely to trust that person than if you see J-Lo with it on her Instagram. Another interesting point before I move on to the neutrals and then the no's are this one from Chantal. Now, Chantal's made a really interesting point here. This was something I was going to come on to. In every industry, there is gifting. I used to be invited on familiarization tours by cities wanting our conferences to be booked in their city. This was a multi-day trip that included hotel, restaurants and sightseeing at no cost to me. In addition, I always received room upgrades and discounted reservations in hotels. It made sense that you should receive those gifts so that you can talk about them on your channel. You work hard to create content, edit, and then put yourself out there. There has to be some reward for this entertainment, product views, and ideas that you share online. Chantel's absolutely right. In every industry, there is free gifting. I actually saw one of you who wrote about, I think you're saying you're a dentist, and you're like, we give out free teeth whitening because we want the exposure. We give free teeth whitening to top customers, but also to staff. Georgia, you've said it. Sometimes it's cheaper for the brand itself to send bags as gifts to influencers instead of throwing a huge launch party in multiple cities. Influencers can hold down the fort. I don't mind that as a consumer, but it feels as if Instagram becomes saturated, and that personally puts me off a product. Really quickly, I've got another really good point from you before I move on. This is from Anto. Number one is transparency for you, and you've gone on to say that unlike magazine ads or commercials where you know the person is being paid, there is no guarantee of this happening on social media. And I've kind of got two thoughts on that. I think first of all, when on social media, it's actually more than annoying when people don't confirm whether they've been paid or given something. Just touching on what you said about magazine ads, with those being really obvious that they've been paid, I actually have another thought on this. When influencers get given bags, it's not just the influencers that get given them. Magazine publications also get given them at the same time. The difference is the person at the magazine who might get to keep that bag is a faceless person and you don't see who they are. The influencer has to kind of plaster themselves everywhere to get the message across. With magazines, I actually don't trust those either. I tell you why. There is something at the moment that's driving me insane, and that is that online news places such as the Daily Mail, I don't know if they've changed it recently, but I was on there last week certainly and I didn't see it. They do articles and they're full of affiliate links, and there is nowhere declaring them. The blogging community has really cleaned up from where it was, and it could do with some more cleaning up. But I actually would push back and say that I think the mainstream media and magazines need to also do the same, and I feel at the moment that they're kind of dodging it a bit. For your no points, before I tell you what I think, Ida, you have said that I loved your comment. I'm surprised at how lenient some of the people are here. Personally, I will always be suspicious of that person getting the free bag. Consciously or not, they may feel pressure to exaggerate the good qualities and downplay the bad. You also say another interesting point. You wonder how many of these brands are passing on the cost of these gifted bags to the buyer. To touch on your second point about do these gifted bags, might they increase the price of the actual product itself? I highly doubt it. Do you know why? Because as I mentioned earlier, the cost of giving out some free bags is way less than if the brand went to an agency and paid for creative and media space. The other thing that a lot of brands do is they do a lot of events for their top customers where they might take people on trips places, they might give them freebies, take them out for really nice lunches and dinners, and that kind of thing you don't often see because people don't tend to publicize it. But there's a lot more that these brands do besides the free bags that would have a cost associated. So my general thought is that with all these brands, they have a marketing spend each year, and that will all be factored in to the cost of running the company and the products, etc. A lot of you saying that you would prefer it if these bags were loaned. Sandra, before I summarize, has left an absolute genius comment. You have said, my comment is going to be quite judgmental and controversial. If that's too much for anyone and you feel personally offended because that's how everyone acts nowadays, please stop reading at this point. You go on to explain that you have an issue with the gifting culture and it makes you not want to buy or own that bag. It makes it to you worth less. And you say, I can't imagine a Chanel bag that some self-proclaimed YouTube beauty guru connoisseur was gifted from, say, Chanel. I know that Chanel would never do that, but other brands do it, such as Louis Vuitton, and it turns you off, particularly when products being given to people that maybe don't have the aesthetic look, or they're not the age demographic that you feel is relative to the brand or the product. What do I think? As a marketeer, I can see the benefits to the brand. It's a cheap, effective way of marketing, brand awareness, product awareness, and potential sales. However, I don't always agree with the strategies that these brands put in place when they get everyone to spam the heck out of Instagram all at once and then it all goes quiet the next day. I don't agree with that. I think it comes across as a little bit too sickly, a bit too saturated, and a bit fake. And I do think I can see the point that you make about how it cheapens the product. The topic of whether brands are buying positive reviews by giving stuff to influencers. I can only speak from my personal experience as a marketeer. When we work with established influencers, most of them will make a call on whether they like the product or not before you even send it to them. Some of them will be like, yeah, possibly I do, send it and then I'll decide. I am more likely, therefore, as a marketeer, to trust a big influencer than a small blogger. Because a small blogger who's trying to work their way up, when we work with them, they're more likely to say yes, 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 because they're trying to build their way up and it's free stuff. When you have a bigger influencer, they have created a brand, and let's say their brand, their audience really trusts them. A good influencer will not want to screw that up with a rubbish product. A good influencer will not want to break or damage that level of trust by pushing something that actually is junk. For a lot of the bigger ones, they don't need to be saying yes all the time. They've kind of got that power to be able to say no and to make a call. And a lot of them are very protective over the audiences that they've built up. And that for them is more important than a bag they might be given. As a blogger, I hate gifted items. Do you know why? I hate gifted items because as soon as you say that something's been given, it's very difficult to prove that you're talking about it, because although you got given it, you really like it. I would always, if a brand's going to come to me, I would always much rather be paid for it than given something. And then out of the money I've been paid, go and buy the product myself. I prefer that strategy because when you get given something and you talk about it, it can be really difficult to convince people watching you that actually, although I got given it, I'm not talking about it just because I got given it. I'm talking about it because I've used it and it's actually decent. And then to finish on how I feel as a customer when I see gifted items. First of all, I don't like the fake hype that can come about when everyone has got the same product and they're all suddenly talking about it. And then you get this thing, I get it, where I think, I really want those weird shoes from Bottega. And then after a year when the hype's died down, I'm like, they are so weird. I'm really glad I didn't buy them. It was that campaign did what it was meant to do. It made me think that I wanted those shoes. So as a customer, I don't like the fake hype because it can cloud my own decision making on whether I actually want the product or not. It's quite an interesting topic, isn't it? I'd love it if you could all continue the conversations below. And I know I couldn't show everyone's comment in this because currently at the time of filming this, there's over 300 comments and they're still coming in. But I really appreciate the level of thought that you all went into, and kind of padding out your answers a lot more has made it a really interesting topic. Let me know what you think. I hope this has been balanced, and I look forward to talking to you in the comments.